Hello.
Hello, Ronnie. Hello, Kathleen. How are you? Nice to see you again.
Hi, it's wonderful to have you here with us tonight here at Taksim Square in the Marmara Hotel. We just had a short introduction on
Great.
Arthouse Index.
Yeah, we thought tonight maybe we could develop the concept of Art House Index or go through the process again, step by step. Nothing too technical, but that would be possible. What do you think? Would that be an option?
Yes, let's just do that. I'm sure we'll come across new problems once we go a bit further on this route. I must say I'm very delighted to have been working with you on this exciting project.
These days we read and hear a lot about art being this interesting new investment class, and opportunities for that seem to pop up everywhere. Kathleen, you just read this amazing story.
Yeah, I was just reading about this bubble that popped in China. It's the Tianjin Art Stock Exchange who had to stop the trade on the fractional ownership of one single painting. And the stock of that painting rose 1,700%.
Yeah, 52 times the highest price in the
Yeah,
auction.
well, I just read that. You must know these are apparently very new structured products. They only exist at this moment.
So maybe we can come up with a better solution. So for tonight, maybe you can start by explaining briefly the difference between two investment schemes that caught our interest most, that of a fund and that of an index.
Yeah, well, a fund, you could say a fund is a bit like a basket with assets in it. So, and the assets that are in the basket are artworks. So basically a fund is a basket, art fund is a basket with artworks. Now the content needs to be decided by somebody, and that somebody you could call the author. So the author of the fund decides which artworks are within the basket. Typically, a fund has a limited duration. So there's a limited number of participants. We invest in a fund for a limited duration of time. At the end of this time, of this preset period, the artworks are resold on the art market with a clear intention to make profit.
Yes, but I think that an index is more dynamic, no? More versatile.
Well, yes, indeed. But an index you could look at a bit as a measuring tool. It qualifies part of the economy, you could say. There's also in the art market. There's a number of examples. For instance, you have the May Moses Art Index, or the Art Market Confidence Index that exists already. For instance, the May Moses Art Index is built on prices which are based on auctions that exist in the art market. So, for instance, the May Moses Art Index had already quite significant impact on the art market, because it shows for the first time that the art market can be a different and viable asset class for investment. So, for instance, at this moment, with the art indices that exist, you can compare the evolution of the art market to a stock market, for instance, like the S&P 500 or the Dow Jones. The difference between funds and indices is mainly that on indices there's not really an author. So where a fund needs a singular author, you could say that with an index, all the users are the author. So the value of a fund is, you could say, limited by the decisions of this one singular author, whereas on the contrary, the value of an index is defined by the wisdom of crowds.
What do you mean with the wisdom of crowds?
Yes, I'm sorry, the wisdom of crowds, it really refers to the number of people that use the index. So you could say that the more users, the more people that use the index, the more value the index has. You could say that if an index has users from all over the world, and one of the examples is, for instance, the Dow Jones index. If an index has users all over the world, it become a tool of reference for all of its users and for the whole of the market.
Sounds really interesting. I think we would like to link this idea of an index which dissolves, as you said, the singular author into a multitude. I'd like to link that into our product, the art house, that masquerades as a global property, as we just saw in the short video. Would you think this would make a unique selling proposition?
Yeah, I think it could be a rather smart idea. You could say that you're combining at this moment art, but also real estate. So that's the combination of the art house index. And if you combine art and real estate, well, both of these markets are really confronted with a liquidity problem.
What do you mean with liquidity problem?
Well, assets that can be bought and sold very easily and very fast, for instance, within a mouse click, those assets are called liquid. So they are transferable and tradable very easily. So, and if a wide range of people can invest and can trade on a certain asset very easily, that's really the characteristic of very liquid assets. People consider liquid assets as safer because, of course, they can get out of this market faster, so they can get their money back by selling the asset in a very swift and smooth way. For instance, these days in the financial markets, futures, options, stocks, currency, and bonds are tradable within a second, and therefore considered as very liquid assets. Art and real estate, on the contrary, are sold with the number bought and sold with a number of restrictions, and therefore are considered as less liquid.
So what you're saying is that if we develop this index on the art house, that would make it liquid?
Yes, it doesn't really make the house itself liquid. It's more that it converts the house into an index, into a financial medium, and that financial medium can be traded or could be traded on a global scale 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. In your case, we're talking about this global and virtual house with the signature of the artist. Of course, it's important to know that as soon as you have a transparent and liquid financial tool, then this tool gives more value to the house itself and to the index. So, more liquid financial tool creates more value for the users.
So, it would seem that, from what you're saying, that art now coincides with finance. I'm sure a lot of people will see this as a complete bankruptcy of meaning and whole non-economic value of art.
Well, I can very much see that it could be quite controversial for artists and much so for the art world. But you could also look at it and see that it's more it's making art more democratic. It's a democratization that's happening. So it's more an equalizing practice where you could say that the elite market, which art represents, can be now participated by a wider number of people than ever before. And this could mean a boost of liquidity and transparency in this market, and this market is not unknown for its opacity and lack of regulation.
But let's have a look now into the underlying assets, the art house that is a global virtual house. How can it be valued? Can you give us any idea of this?
Yeah, we need some concrete value on this property, otherwise we like to talk about air.
Yeah, it's indeed you should value the underlying, and a good idea probably would be to entrust this valuation to a rating agency. You could create a transparent process in valuing the different assets and valuing the parts of the index. And this evaluation could happen with experts from the market in a very transparent way. And then you could evolve from an intransparent masquerade really to a transparent financial vehicle. That's definitely a move in the right direction, because you could make, well, this rating agency could make public estimations. They would could publicize the narrative around your art house index. That could be a very interesting move.
And Skype is really strange. How can we ask important peers to support this project? How can we ask them to?
Well, I would just say keep doing what you're doing. At this moment, you're already part of this value creating process in the art market. Your mere presence here and the whole performance creates already some surplus value in what we would call the market of ideas, of which you're clearly part of. All these markets are also linked to each other.
Yeah, I must say it's quite true that we've been investing in ourselves for the last 50 years, and at the same time with a very poor financial return on investment. It seems that we're like the speculators of our own fortunes.
Yeah, well, but isn't it that all part of the game that you're playing? So the art world is a universe of discourse, where the narrative is very important. And if you would fail to win the support of the important institutions that are investing in art, or the private collectors, that would marginalize you to the periphery of this market. Because mainly it is very clear that it's they who credit you as artists.
Yes, but that works in both ways.
Yeah, but the artwork is definitely, it's not finished in the studio. You can only become author of a work when it's also consumed. So to become author, the work needs to be consumed. It's very important how people receive the artwork, how people speak about it, how they exhibit it and then deal with it. And of course, how they buy it. So you could say that even object-based art these days could be represented as quite immaterial. Even our conversation at this moment is bringing value to the art house index at this very moment, because of course in this conversation there's also participation of a number of art lovers and important people from this industry, and so there's also an evaluation process that takes place at this very moment. All you have to do right now is organize this information to your advantage.
Yeah, we could say that thanks to the credit of the audience here, that we can become the author of our work, that we can become primaire herman.
And you were saying that we should make all this information public, right? That would be the idea.
Yes, it's clear that the public information creates trust. So the more public information, the better, you would say. Printing a prospectus, for instance, is really a good idea. Your art rating agency, they would measure visibility of the art, the institutional attention, the publication profile, and they could create more public information around the art house index. There's also other parameters you could use. In any case, investors could see through all this information the index as a very transparent index and transparent measuring tool. It's very important that we position the art house index as a frontier investment opportunity, which is only limited only by the imagination of its artists.